On previous days, Sayadaw has been emphasizing on Viriya, effort, the fourth factor of Padāniyanga. And by listening attentively, one will understand the benefits of exerting effort, and one will be able to strive hard systematically, and one will initiate the effort, and one will boost up the effort in order to overcome difficulties. When one comes across unpleasant sensations, pains and aches, the person does not shift posture, and the person notes these unpleasant sensations without giving up. Noting these pains and aches without giving up, yogi will gain upper hand. Even by noting pain, yogi will feel that it is pleasant noting the pain. Overcoming the pain, one progresses further, and one exerts effort stage by stage until one reaches one's goal. The person who exerts these 3 stages of effort is called Arata Viriya. And there should be Pagahita Viriya, persistent effort, that the efforts become increased stage by stage. The example is given here. When a person lifts something from the ground, the person should lift it up so that the thing will not go down, the thing will not stagnate in the middle, but the thing will be uplifted, going higher and higher. In the same way, one needs to exert persistent effort so that his or her effort will not deteriorate, it will not be stagnating in the middle, but the effort will be higher and higher until one reaches one's goal. And it is called Paripurna Viriya, accomplished effort. The person who possesses this kind of viriya, the person will be mindful in whatever posture he or she is in. In the 4 major postures, lying, sitting, standing, walking, as well as any other minor postures such as bending, stretching, opening and closing of the eyes, blinking, one should be mindful in all these postures, and the effort will become higher and higher. The person who possesses persistent effort will be removing unwholesomeness, and the person accumulates wholesomeness so that one will be accomplished with wholesomeness. And Dhamma, his or her practice, will gain strength. There will be Dhala Viriya, the strong effort, not giving up, but practicing persistently. And one should practice with persistent effort so that one will reach one's goal. So one should make the effort in order to remove the unwholesomeness. One should make the effort in order to cultivate wholesomeness. As a human being, it is important to be a true human, to have a humane mind, and to be an outstanding human, and to have human knowledge. And also, one should have the responsibility of a human being not to be tormenting, not to be hurting others. There will be aniketa dura when the practice gains momentum, that the person does not give up his or her duty of practice. And Saraji will continue to explain what will happen when the person does not give up the duty of practice. The person who possesses good quality viriya, effort, is said to be Sukham Viharati. The person lives in happiness. As the person exerts effort in the practice, one will be free from the wrongful thoughts, micca vitaka. Being free from wrongful thoughts, the person is said to live in happiness. The kind of micca vitaka, the kama vitaka, sensual desire, sensual thoughts, wanting to see good things, wanting to hear good sounds, wanting to smell good fragrance, and so on, wanting better and better things to be seen, to be heard, to be smelled, to be tasted, to be touched. There is ill thought, such as wanting to destroy others with envy, jealousy. Such kind of wrongful thoughts arises if the person is lacking effort in the practice. And there can be selfishness, greed, grudge, hatred, aversion, delusion. Such kind of unwholesome mental states are removed by exerting effort. When the person has good quality effort, the person is free from 3 kinds of wrongful thoughts. Being free from 3 kinds of wrongful thoughts, one is said to be living in happiness. Every moment the person is noting the object. The noting mind involves viriya, effort. So when the noting mind is analyzed, there is sila makanga, the morality group, samadhi makanga, concentration group. Having sila, one is refraining from transgressions. Having sila. So sila is one's true welfare and benefit. Having viriya, sati and samadhi, having effort, mindfulness and concentration, the mind is pure, clean, wholesome. So through the practice of samadhi group, which is viriya, sati, samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, one cultivates one's true welfare and benefit. In this way, one needs to practice so that one will be fulfilling one's true benefit. And one will gain benefits that are pure and clean. And also, the mental strength will increase as much one has persistent effort in the practice. So yogis should be dutiful in their responsibility of practicing with persistent effort. Exerting good quality effort, then sati and samadhi, effort, mindfulness, will gain momentum. And sati, mindfulness, will not just be ordinary form of sati, but it will become Satipatthana. One should exert effort stage by stage so that one will be cultivating good quality effort. In noting the objects, the kaya, the physical objects, the vedana, various kinds of feelings and sensations, citta, the mind, the consciousness, and the Dhamma, the mental activities. So these four fields of objects are to be noted. Among these four fields of objects to be noted, there are objects arising due to the circumstances, and there are nature involved in these objects. So in the objects such as rising, falling, sitting, touching, bending, stretching, opening and closing of the eyes, sitting, there are nature characteristics such as hardness, softness, fluidity, cohesion, congealing, heaviness, warmth, heat, cold, lightness, stiffness, tension, movement. So these nature can be discerned. And there can also be pleasant and unpleasant sensations in the body as well as the mind. And these pleasant, unpleasant sensations are also to be noted. The comfort, discomfort are also to be noted. At times, there arises various kinds of thoughts, imaginations, and so on, and one should be mindful of these thoughts and imaginations when they arise. And there are also various other objects such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, knowing. These are also to be noted. And also, the arising of greed, arising of anger are also to be noted. Sleepiness, distraction, regret, remorse, worry, confusion, all of these are to be noted. So these objects, they are Buddha as they arise due to their relevant cause. And they are existing, and then they can be discerned through the direct knowledge. In oneself, there are Buddha, the objects that are arising, that really exist. The whole of body and mind is the field of objects to be noted. Among these field of objects to be noted, there are objects arising freshly new at the present moment. At times, the kaya, the material body, manifests. At times, the feelings and sensations become obvious. At times, thoughts, imaginations become obvious. At times, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching are obvious. So whatever object that is obvious, whatever object that is freshly new at the present moment is to be noted. And there should be Satipatthana. One should have sustained mindfulness on the object. In order to have sustained mindfulness on the object, one should note the object with effort. When sati, mindfulness, become strong, it will become patthana. Patthana means firmly established. Satipatthana means the firmly established mindfulness. As much one exerts effort in noting the object, the mind sinks into the object, enters the object, plunges into the object, and mindfulness is sustained and continuous on the object. Sati mindfulness gains momentum in noting the object, and there will be mindfulness arising continuously. Yogi who notes the object respectfully, meticulously, there will be Satipatthana, firm, established mindfulness on the object. And as much one exerts effort in the practice, one will be developing Satipatthana. In the word Satipatthana, sati means remembering, and patthati, upatthati, the mindfulness sticks onto the object. The mindfulness is firmly established on the object. As soon as the object arises, one should note the object with effort so that mindfulness will be sustained on the object. And there should be ardent effort, noting the object, full of alertness, readiness in the noting. Noting the effort, noting the object with the effort, sati, mindfulness, sinks into the object, and mindfulness is sustained on the object. Just as when a stone is thrown into the water, the stone sinks into the object. And when noting the object with effort, the mindfulness sinks into the object, just as a stone sinks in water. As the yogi notes the object, the mindfulness becomes continuous, just like a stream of current, and the mindfulness enters, sinks, and plunges into the object continuously. When the effort gains momentum in the practice, sati, mindfulness, also gains momentum. And when noting the object, one should not be noting it in the slow speed, but one should note the object in fast speed. Paṇḍitā means that the mind should rush into the object in great momentum. Noting the object, rushing the mind onto the object with great momentum, one will be mindful of the object. The mindfulness does not cover partially on the object, so the mindfulness should cover and spread onto the whole object. So it should not just be mindful partially on the object, but one's mindfulness should cover and spread onto the entire object. When noting rising and falling of the abdomen, in order to have sustained mindfulness, one should note rising, falling with ardent effort, so that the mind sinks into the rising, falling. The mind plunges into the rising, falling, so that the mind should sink into the rising, falling. And when noting the object, one should not be noting at slow speed or the normal speed, but one should note the object at fast speed, full of momentum in noting. And also, mindfulness should cover onto the entire object. So the mindfulness should not just be on the part of the object, but it should cover the entire object. In noting the object, there is also jhanic factor involved. One has to aim and direct the noting mind onto the object, so that the noting mind will be face to face or direct with the object. Noting rising, the mindfulness should be direct with the rising of the abdomen. When noting falling, the mindfulness will be face to face with the falling of the abdomen. And when noting sitting, touching, the mindfulness should be direct face to face with the sitting and touching. And the same goes with lifting, moving, placing of the foot. In noting, lifting, moving, placing, the mindfulness, the mind should be direct or face to face with the lifting, moving, and placing. In this way, one should note the object with aim and effort, so that the mind does not slip away from the object, but the mind will be able to note the object effectively, efficiently. One has to note the object so that the noting mind rubs and strokes against the object. When the noting mind rubs and strokes against the object, one will be certain of the object. One should note the object with aim and effort, so that there will be sustained mindfulness. The mind does not run elsewhere. The mind falls calm, collected on the object. When the noting mind falls calm, collected on the object, the mind will not be agitated by raga or dosa, but the mind is calm, collected, and unified, and it is the benefit of asserting diligent effort in the practice. As much one asserts diligent effort in the practice, the more sustained the mindfulness will be, and the more the mind will fall calm, collected on the object, and one's noting mind will be effective, efficient. The noting mind rubs and strokes against the object, so that there will be certainty. So, in noting the object, it is important that one should assert strong effort in the practice. So, in noting the object, one should know what it is by noting it. When rising arises, one notices that rising, and what the yogi comes to know by noting rising. When falling takes place, noting falling, what the yogi comes to know, noting falling. And when lifting arises, by noting lifting, what does the yogi come to know? And when moving, noting moving, what the yogi comes to know. And placing the foot, when noting placing, what does the yogi come to know by noting placing? When the effort is lack, then mindfulness will be weak and one will not discern the nature when the mindfulness is weak. Noting rising and falling of the abdomen, what does the yogi come to know? When the noting mind falls on form or shape of the abdomen, yogi will just see the form or shape of the abdomen by noting rising. And when going for interview, if the teacher asks, when you note rising, what do you come to know? Then, if the yogi just know it as form or shape of the abdomen, then the yogi should answer that he or she comes to know form or shape of the abdomen by noting rising. And the same goes with the walking. When noting lifting, what does the yogi come to know? Is it the form or shape of the foot? Is it the manner of lifting? Or is it lightness or pulling? What the yogi comes to know. He or she should report in interview what he or she comes to know by noting rising, falling, lifting, moving, placing. But they should not be saying other things, this and that, apart from their practice. And yogis should have honesty in reporting. Yogi should describe whether he or she comes to know the form or shape of the abdomen, or whether the manner of rising, falling, or the nature such as stiffness, tension, relaxation, when noting rising, falling. When the mind falls on the rising, yogi will discern or see something, and yogi should describe what he or she comes to know by noting rising. So there are three things to be reported: a rising of the object, how the yogi knows, and what the yogi comes to know. So these 3 points should be reported. When the effort is strong, the noting will be effective. The noting mind will fall on the true nature, such as stiffness, tension, movement when noting rising, movement, relaxation when falling. And during the walking meditation, when lifting the foot, if the yogi notes the lifting with effort, yogi can come to know the nature such as lightness. And when noting the moving of the foot with effort, yogi can come to discern the nature such as pushing, pulling. And when noting placing of the foot, noting the placing with effort, yogi can come to know the nature such as heaviness, pressure, and so on. Noting the object with aim and effort, the mind will fall beyond the form or shape or the manner, and yogi will come to discern the true nature such as stiffness, tension, movement, lightness, heaviness, warmth, heat, cold, and so on. And when noting lifting, moving, placing, yogi should also note with aim and effort so that he or she comes to know the true nature. It is important that yogi should be active, alert, and ready in noting the object so that the mind sinks into the object. There should be noting with fast speed. When the object arises, yogi should note it right away at fast speed in great momentum so that mindfulness will cover the entire object, and Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, will also be cultivated. And it is very important that the noting mind falls on the object. And Sayadaw says, it is easy and simple to note the object, and yogi should describe what he or she comes to know when reporting an interview. But if the yogi is thinking, dreaming, imagining, daydreaming, fantasizing, then their practice will not be proper. And still there are some yogis who are not practicing properly. When they are asked to describe what they come to know when noting rising, falling, they will describe they see space, and they will describe that when they note rising, falling, there is a space, and they cannot describe what the space is about. So it shows that they are not practicing properly. So when coming for interview, they should report what they come to discern. They should not be reporting from their imagination or speculation. And also when they are noting the object, they should note the object with aim and effort. So Sayadaw says, there are still time left in the retreat. Yogis should practice according to the guidance and instruction. They should practice accurately, precisely, according to the guidance and instructions. And if the teacher sees the yogi who is practicing precisely, accurately, according to the guidance given, then the meditation teacher will love such kind of yogi who practices accurately, precisely, according to the guidance given. Yogis should understand that there are three things: form or shape concept, the manner concept, and the nature such as stiffness and tension. So there are three things: form or shape, and the manner, and the true nature. In the beginning of the practice, it is not easy to discern the true nature without mixing up with the form, shape, and the manner. When a person looks at other person, one has to look at the whole face as a whole. And by looking at the whole face, then one will see the forehead, the eyes, and so on. So in order to see, one should look at the whole face of another person. When noting rising and falling, one should note as rising, falling, and one should describe what he or she comes to know. Is it the form or shape of the abdomen? Is it the manner of rising? Or is it the nature such as stiffness, tension, warmth, heat, or cold? Yogi should describe from his or her experience what he, she comes to know by noting rising. So it is the duty of the yogi to report what he or she comes to know when noting rising, falling. And they should not be describing things that they do not really come to know. And if saying that when I note rising, falling, I can see space when noting rising. There is a space when noting falling. So when the yogi describes from imagination, speculation, then it is difficult to correct the yogi. And Sayadaw explains about one story. There were two students who were coming to learn how to play a harp. Among these two students, one of them had learned how to play a harp before, but he was not skillful. He just knew very little about playing harp. But the other student cannot play the harp at all. He had never learned how to play a harp. So when these two students come to learn from the teacher, the fee that they had to give was not the same. The teacher charged a higher fee to the student who knew little about playing harp, and the person who has not learned playing harp before, who doesn't know anything about playing harp, has to give a lower fee. So for the person who does not know how to play the harp at all, had to pay less. So the reason is that the person who knows very little about playing harp, he has learned before, so he will be playing what he thinks as right, so not following the instruction. So it is more difficult to teach the person who has learned before, who has very little knowledge, and who thinks that he or she is right, and keep on doing the way he or she thinks as right. So it is difficult to correct such kind of student. On the other hand, the student who has not played harp before, because he does not know anything, he followed the instruction, so it is easier to teach the student who has not learned anything before, as the student just listen to what the teacher instructs and the student follows. So it is easier that way. And thus that student had to pay less as the fee. And Sayadaw says that it goes the same here. Some of the yogis who have practiced here and there before, they have been sticking into the way they have practiced before, so that it is more difficult to correct such kind of yogis. And one should know that while you are in Rome, just act like people who are in Rome. While you are here in this meditation center, you need to follow the instruction and guidance given here. You should set aside whatever you have learned before, but if you are here, you need to follow the guidance and instruction given here. And some of the yogis are very difficult to be corrected. And Sayadaw says that if the person is reluctant to follow the guidance and instruction given here, not to be wasting time, but it is better that he or she practices elsewhere where he or she can practice according to his or her wish. And this will be all for today.